Okay. Yeah, we're now streaming. Good. Hello, everybody. So we have Agnes, group founder. We have Sheena, author of Cadwallader Quest, and myself, Lucy Kennedy. I'm a Cssc tutor, founder of Learning with Lucy. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. And we've set this session up for any parents who have children sitting their Cssc exams specifically this year or next year, or even the year after, really. So it's just like a beginner's guide, really, trying to answer as many of your queries as we can within the session, but kind of keeping it focused into 3 parts. So I'm just going to share my screen and I will load up our presentation. So please feel free to take notes during this session. After all, that's kind of what it's for. It's an informative session for you guys. And before we get started, we do have to read out our disclaimer. Aggie, do you want to read that one out?
Can you just do that? I'm just checking on something. Sorry,
yeah, of course.
Just got to check
so
something.
The details presented in this Facebook Live are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as educational or personalised professional advice on any subject matter. Whatever you hear during this Facebook Live is merely the opinion of the admin team. You should not act nor refrain from acting on the basis of any content included in this session without first seeking educational or other personalised professional advice from elsewhere. Where possible, references are being made from procedures and policies of the local authorities and schools. However, policies may change in light of decisions made by the school's adjudicator, the Education, Skills and Funding Agency, or any change in the law. Okay, glad that's out the way. We have to get that done, guys. So just moving on now. Just wanted to kind of tell you roughly the 3 sections that this session is going to be split into. So first up is introduction to the Cssc and the Cssc schools, followed by the application procedure. That's quite a big one. We're trying to get through everything for you. And then the final section is the exam format and preparation. So, I mean, for those that aren't watching, they'll be able to catch up later, but that's roughly how it's going to be split up. Okay, so let's start with an introduction to the Cssc and the schools. So the Cssc was formed in 1993. It's a voluntary association, still is. And the idea of it being, it's the same selective test that's utilised by the 10 Cssc schools. And it saves children whose parents express a preference for more than one selective school having to take multiple tests. So it kind of just streamlines it. Consortium members. So the 10 schools within the Cssc, we have King Edward VI Grammar School, otherwise known as KEGS, in Chelmsford, Colchester County High School for Girls, which is Aggiesfield, definitely. Colchester Royal Grammar School, that's a boys' school in Colchester. We have the 2 South End schools, the girls and the boys. Westcliff High School for girls, and then Westcliff High School for boys. We have St Bernard's High School for girls in Westcliff, St Thomas More High School for boys in Westcliff, and Shoebury Ness High School. So these are the 10 schools within Essex that are consortium members and accept those who sit the Cssc exam in some form or another. Okay. Now, Aggie, would you like to explain
basically, every year, all the Cssc schools will publish an admission number for the number of places that are on offer for each of the schools. So what you see now are the 10 schools and the number as it is from the 2021 intake. itself. So you'll see that Colchester County High School for Girls has got 192 places. Bearing in mind, when you look at the admissions policy for each of these schools, there will be a certain number of places allocated for children who are looked after or previously looked after, as well as basically they are people premium students. So you have to look at how many places that are on offer for them, and the remaining spaces will then be offered for all the other kids. Okay, so all those numbers that you see there are the places on offer every year. Some years you have less, and then they gradually add on a class or two for some of the schools. So that is the number as it is, and you can see the total number of admission that they have for 2021 intake, which is 1,323.
Okay. And this one?
Now, again, you're looking at the number of candidates every year. This is the trend for the past 10 years up to 2022. So if you look at this table here, there are years that it goes down a little bit and it goes up a little bit. Last year's figure, the one for 2021 intake rather, is not yet with us. It's not going to be released until March of this year. So we have up to 2020. If you look at it, the trend is after 2014, it started going up every year. And then in 2020, it went down a little bit, just a slight dip in numbers. But we would expect that for 2021 intake, the number would be probably maybe even touching 6,000 because of the extension, the 2 months that was given by Csse for those who wanted to apply to sit the test. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Aggie. So we're now moving on to the application procedure part of the session. Really, really important. And hopefully we will be answering lots of questions within this. So within the information that we present to you. We've kind of based it on the session that we did last time, the questions that arose from that session. So firstly, how do I apply for a place at a Csse school? Well, there's two parts to this. You have to name the school as one of your preferences on your local authority common application form, and otherwise known as CAF. And you have to make sure that you put the schools in your order of preference. That's very, very important. Secondly, you have to register your child to sit the 11+ tests by completing the Cssc's Supplementary Information Form, otherwise known as the SIF. So both of these things do have to be done. So if you do one, it doesn't guarantee the other. If you do the other, it doesn't guarantee the first one. They're really, really important, both of those parts. Okay, so that's how you apply for a place. Now, the usual application timeline, this is pre-COVID, although we can kind of evaluate on, different things that were changed and pushed back. So it shouldn't be too far off for year 5s now. It shouldn't be too far off. There may be some delays, there may be some pushbacks. But say for this year, for 2021 in May, the SIF registration opens. Now, remember, that is the Supplementary Information Form, basically your application with the Csse. Okay, so that will open in May. In June, school open days. Yep. Registration opens. Now, remember,
sorry about that. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You're watching. That's fine. I thought someone asked a question. Okay, so June, school open days or evenings will begin. So this is your chance to really get a feel for the school and try and decide where you think your child is best placed. Okay, lots of different factors that come into that, but that's when those open days and evenings will be showing. Hopefully they will be this year in person. Otherwise, we know that everything's gone virtual this year and last, so be prepared for that as well. July, the Csse deadline for the registration. So that's when it closes, okay? So you have to register your child between May and July. The specific dates are all outlined in the Csse on their website. And the test centre arrangements are then finalised. So they take all of those applications and then kind of divide them into preferences and arrange the test centres. September, the 11+ tests take place. Now, this was pushed back last year, as we know, due to COVID. We're hoping it's going to be September, but because schools have now been, pushed back to the 8th of March at the earliest, that could be delayed within London and Essex. We have to be prepared for it to be an exam that will be towards winter rather than the autumn. So we'll bear that in mind. And in September, so around the same sort of time as the 11+ tests, the local authority applications open, okay? This is the one that usually creates chaos because this is where you're having to, choose your schools, basically. Once you've gone to all the open days, the evenings, you're having to choose your schools, the preferences, you're having to submit in a timely manner in order for those to be taken into consideration by your local authority. October, we get the results, and it's also the closing date for the completed CAF, okay? And that's usually when I mentioned about chaos, that's when it gets really chaotic. Because suddenly we have people that think, oh no, my child's got a better score than I expected. I now want to put this school down as my first preference. It's hectic. So it's really, really important that you know in your heart of hearts that the school you put down as your first preference is the school you want your child to go to, okay? Because if they're sitting that exam, they will have a chance of getting a place. But do it, in order of preference. That's why it's called order of preference. March, National Offer Day. That's when you get an offer from your local authority, which will tell you where your child has been assigned a place at school. So that's usual application timeline. We're expecting maybe some delays this year because of COVID. Okay. Just some key points. And again, these are based on experiences, I guess, tutors and, Aggie is founder of the group and the questions that she's been getting through. Change of address. If you change your address after registering your child to sit the Csse test, but before completing your local authority form, you must notify the Csse office in writing. You must do that.
Crucial. It's very, very crucial.
Yeah. And secondly, I kind of mentioned this previously, completing only the Csse test registration form does not constitute a valid application for a place at a Csse school. Parents must use the CAF. Remember, this is the local authority one in which they live, even if the schools that they name as preferences on the form are in a different authority. Okay, you have to do both things.
At this point, it's important to note that if you are actually living in a different borough and you are going to put a Csse school, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about whether the two boroughs will coordinate. They will. All the boroughs will coordinate. The councils, the LEAs will coordinate and make sure that you do not get offered two places. You get the one school according to the qualification of your child for whichever your order of preference was. Okay?
Yep. Thanks, Aggie. So should my child sit the tests, even if I don't intend to name a Csse school on the local authority form? So there are parents out there that will put their child through as many exams as they think necessary. The Csse outrightly say, no, if you don't intend to name one of those schools on your local authority form and you're just kind of hedging your bets, don't do it. It's kind of unfair on the other applicants that are within catchment as well, because obviously it expands that cohort, it makes it more competitive. So if you know that a Cssc school is not one that you would like them to go to, and it's, you know, not going to get put on your local authority form, then just don't put your child through the exam. Okay, in which order should I list my school preferences on the local authority form? Aggie, you know lots about this one.
Right. Basically, if you have 4 schools within that you are within catchment, now you have to really look into whether you are in catchment. It's a very, very important thing, because if you do not stand you may not stand a chance unless your child qualifies with a higher mark for some of the schools. So you know, if your pass mark, you only get about 302 and your pass mark is 350, and you know you don't stand a chance. So if your CAF is submitted after you've got the results, make sure you be realistic and make sure you put it in whatever manner that you think your child stands a chance.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Aggie. Can I name more than one Cssc school on my CAF? Yes, you can.
You've got 6 choices if you live in Essex. A lot of the surrounding councils also have 6. Some places, like where Sheena is, there's only 3, isn't it, Sheena? Is that right?
4.
4, okay. So we are lucky we've got 6 places. Wherever you're coming from, whichever borough you're filling up, it depends on where you're filling up your form. So make sure you make an informed decision. That's why and the other thing, I had a lot of phone calls from a lot of parents the night before CAF was due for submission. For the past few years, I've had phone calls of desperate parents saying that what I've done is I've put them in random order. That's not going to work for you. Your child, if you put a comprehensive school, which is not a grammar school, as number 1, because you've got 6 choices, they will give you that school. If your child qualifies, you know, that would be your first preference. If they are within catchment for that school, they will get it. But if you want a grammar school, again, I said there's a lot of things to consider, whether you're in catchment, whether your son or daughter has gained enough marks to get into that school, you know, whatever it is, make sure you make an informed decision, realistic decision as well.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree more. Okay, finally, will my child receive more than one offer of a school place from the local authority?
That's definitely only one place, because all the local authorities will coordinate the placement.
Yeah, so you will only ever receive one offer. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole point. You know, they get the applications in, they go by your preferences as parents, and then kind of coordinate with each other in assigning one place per child. Yes. And that's it. Okay. Admissions criteria. So the whole idea of admissions criteria is it's used by the local authority to process the school offers. Admissions criteria is unique to each school. So each individual school will have its own criteria, selective or not. Admissions criteria takes into account catchment areas, looked after or previously looked after children, which is those in care, and pupil premium, so those eligible for free school meals, things like that. The secondary school's admission booklet is available to download from your local authority's website. It's a huge document, actually, but it's full of information. It's so vital, you know, it's so vital.
Definitely one document you want to read from cover to cover, because you don't want to miss anything that's in those booklets, because that's where all the information you need is.
Yeah.
It's very quick. You need to read it 3 times, read it 3 times, but you need to understand exactly what you need to do. Yeah,
absolutely. And actually what they've done is the local authority have, you know, kind of put together all of the admission policies of each school as well. So you can go onto a school's website and find its admissions criteria, but, you know, it is easier if it's in one place. You can scroll through, compare. So really, really useful, and that's available to download for free on the local authority's website. Okay, the decision-making process, so this is on behalf of the local authority. If your child does not meet the admissions criteria of your first preference school, then your second preference moves up the list and is treated as your new first preference by the local authority. This is why preference and the order in which you rank the schools is so important, okay? Because if you're not going to put that favourite school down as number one, there's no chance. This is how the council or the local authority use it. Each school has a published admission number, which is what Aggie was referring to earlier, and it's the maximum number of children that the school intends to admit each year. If there are more applications than this number, then the school's oversubscription criteria will be applied. So we've kind of taken an example of oversubscription criteria. This is Cssc, Colchester County High School for Girls. And you can see, through points 1, 2, and 3, it's like a ranking. This is the criteria. So number 1, this is top priority. Looked after children, LAC, or previously looked after children, PLAC, who score 320 or above, they will be prioritised first. So basically those in care or have previously been in care who score 320 or above. Okay, so good score, but within care or previously in care. So they're top priority.
If I can just interrupt on this point, when you look at the admissions policy for 2022-2023 intake for CCHSG, point 1.3, paragraph 2 would tell you, remember in the CSSE SIF itself, it tells you that there are 3 schools there that require an additional SIF to be filled up, which you can obtain from the school. For CCHSG, the reason you need it is if your child is on a pupil premium. So you need to fill up the extra. Not everybody needs to do it, only those who are on pupil premium, looked after children. This is how they categorize your child is going to be given that additional consideration based on the marks they received. Okay? You get that? It's the same thing with St. Thomas More and St. Bernard's. Those are 2 Roman Catholic schools. They have an additional requirement for you to use their additional SIF. The reason is because they need you to fill up to say that your child is, whatever details they need in that SIF to consider for the Catholic school itself. And I think you need an additional letter from the priest if they're attending church as well.
Yes, so there'll be some kind of endorsement as well from the minister or priest. Yeah. Okay, so number 2, so next down the list in priority, thereafter, up to 20 places will be available to the highest scoring applicants who are eligible for the pupil premium, i.e. those in receipt of free school meals, either currently or have received free school meals in the previous 6 years, and who achieve a test score of 320 or more. So we can see it's still selective. They're still looking at scores, but it's priority to those in care, followed by those in receipt of pupil premium. Okay, so they have to score 320 or more. Finally, the remaining places will be available to all other highest scoring applicants in rank order of merit, basically in rank order of their score. Okay. Now we have something called distance tiebreaker that's used. Most schools use distance to prioritise their applications, both within each individual criterion and as a final criterion. Straight line distance is commonly used, however, a small number of schools measure by the shortest walking route. Again, check with your school. Every school's website will have its admissions policy on there. So if in doubt and you want to get really specific and into the nitty-gritty, then just go on to their own policy. For admissions purposes, the LA or local authority uses data provided by the Ordnance Survey to measure straight line distances. This data plots the coordinates of each individual property, the home address, which are referred to as address points, So this is how they use the distance tiebreaker. And obviously whoever is closest will get the place. Okay. National Offer Day, 1st of March. Again, subject to change. So for you guys in year 5, this will be March next year, hopefully. Offer notifications are sent to all Essex resident families who have made on-time applications. Now, applications, we know you can make them by online, in which case the communication is by email, or you can apply by post, in which case communication is by post.
The thing here is, if you were to apply online, you can also view the results online from midnight, the day that the post is arriving. You know, you can get the results first if you want to. As long as you've got the candidate number, you can do that. Yeah.
I don't think many people now do post. I think most people probably opt for email because it's easier. And
quite a lot of people still do it. I don't know why, but I would think anything electronic is a lot quicker, a lot easier.
Yeah, me too. Plus you get your results earlier. You get them from midnight.
Yeah.
Okay. If none of your preferences can be met, you'll be offered a place at the nearest Essex school to the home address with a space available. It's quite rare, okay? But if none of your preferences can be met, literally your child does not meet the criteria of any of those schools, any of those preferences that you've noted down, the local authorities still have to offer your child a place. So it will be at the nearest school to the home address that has a space available. For September 2020, 93.44% were offered their first or second preference of secondary school. Again, this just hammers home to us that it's super important to put your preferences down in which school, in the order of which school you'd like your child to attend. So first or second preference, 93.44% were offered that for last year.
I know we are repeating ourselves here a lot about the order of preference, but that is really the key in making sure you get what you want.
Definitely. Okay, so this person has decided that they would prefer a lower preference school than the one that they have been offered. So this is kind of what I was saying earlier, you know, of course, people will change their minds and think, oh, I don't think I've put them in the right order. I think we want this school now, you know, second preference or third preference. So the local authority outline, so this is Essex County Council. If having received your offer, you decide you would rather your child attends one of your lower Essex preference schools, please put this request in writing to school admissions. Your application to that school will then be reactivated, and if there are no places available, added to the appropriate place on the waiting list. If you want your child's details added to a non-Essex school's waiting list, you need to put this in writing to school admissions. It should be noted that different waiting list systems may apply, and it's your responsibility as the parent or carer to find out how waiting lists for schools in other local authority areas are operated. This includes what happens if an offer is made from a non-Essex waiting list. Yeah, super important. It can differ so much between local authorities. So that just kind of outlines it all there. Okay, waiting lists. 10 days after National Offer Day, waiting list positions are available to view. So you can check regularly because the positions change daily. So Aggie, this is something that not many people know about.
Again, if you were to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I know, if you register online, you can check with the candidate number to see where they are in the waiting list. You can check for the first week, they could be changing every hour.
Yeah.
First week that they start school, people are either, you know, rejecting the places, going elsewhere. They've got a better, higher preference, second preference, that higher preference, whatever that they've got, they change in mind about whether they want to go to a private school. That sort of, a lot of different circumstances can come into play. So, you know, it really does make a difference. If you want to check where your child's place is in a day, it could change 10 times.
Yeah, so really important, if you have made an online application and you do want to know, like Aggie said, just keep up to date with it, keep checking. The positions change daily or even more than once within a day. Candidates' details will be held on a waiting list for any schools of higher preference than that offered. So let's say you get offered your second preference, then the details can be held on a waiting list for your first preference, because after all, that's the school that you really want your child to go to. Waiting lists will be maintained by the local authority until the 31st of August. After that, you have to liaise directly with the school. If a place becomes available, then the child at the top of the waiting list will be offered the place. This waiting list will be maintained by the schools until a minimum of the 31st of December. If you wish to keep your child in the inquiry list of your preferred school, you must make this known to the school in writing after the 31st of December. So let's say we have no delays because of COVID and dates run as normal, then that school in December will get rid of your child's details that they have been known to, because that waiting list, as far as they're concerned, they've got through the first term. Anyone who wants to go to that school would be, you know, chasing up proactively. So that list kind of, it gets destroyed. Yeah. So as a parent or carer, you have to be constantly, you know, chasing that school up, just to, you know, see what the situation is, how long roughly you think the wait is, but also what the chances are as well. A lot of people give up, I think, within the first few months, don't they?
They do, but a lot of them also stay on the list. If you don't want to give up, even in year 8, year 9, your child will be called in to be tested for an in-year admission if the place becomes available. If someone leaves, moves to school or whatever, then you need to make sure your child is still in that list. You have to make sure you tell them, I still want to remain in the list. So at the end of year 7, you tell them, I want to remain in case a place becomes available in year 8, and so on for the next year.
Yeah, exactly. So it's possible.
Done not with the local authority, not with Cssc, but with the schools itself, not with the local authority, but in the individual school that you're interested in.
Yeah. Okay, and then appeals. So this is for Essex only. If your child has not been offered a place at your preferred school or schools, you have the statutory right to appeal to an independent appeal panel against the decision not to admit your child. So everyone has the right to this. Appeals should be lodged within 20 school days of being refused a place. And more information is available on the Essex website, essex.gov.uk/admissions. Okay, exam format and prep. So final part of our session, but arguably the longest. We're going to go through the Cssc exam. We're going to talk about how you can prepare for it. Yeah, so this, you know, should be vital actually, I would say, for parents, year 4, year 5, parents of year 4, year 5 children. So exam format. The Cssc test is made up of 2 papers, English and mathematics. The final scores of these papers are mathematically standardised and weighted, each being worth 50% of the marks. Results of all candidates are analysed by date of birth to determine if an age adjustment is required. So basically age standardisation. Okay. It goes by date of birth, goes by your child's age when they sit the test. And if there is a huge difference in the scores that are coming through, then the Cssc just kind of tweak it a little, they analyse the scores and then just adjust them so that those that are the youngest get a fairer chance and are compared kind of more evenly. So first up, the English paper. Total number of marks is 60, and there are 3 parts to the English paper. First part, 40 marks. Comprehension. Second part, applied reasoning, otherwise known as verbal reasoning, 5 marks. Continuous writing, otherwise known as creative writing, 15 marks. Okay, that's how the English paper is split up. Now, if we look at the times for those sections, the paper in total, we have 60 minutes, but 10 minutes reading. So when your child first sits down and has filled out all of their candidate information, they get 10 minutes reading time to read through the passage. They're not allowed to do anything else other than read within that time. Then they get 60 minutes to do the whole paper. So 30 minutes for the comprehension questions, 10 minutes for applied reasoning, and 20 minutes for the continuous writing. So if we actually break down the English paper into scores, timing, we can see that comprehension is the most important part of this paper. And within comprehension, you have both standard format questions where your child has to actually write their own response. You also get multiple choice questions. But the key skills needed, basically, for this section, vocabulary. Your child needs to have a good understanding of, I would say, ambitious vocabulary. Okay, so it's not like they need to swallow a dictionary, but they need to have that kind of sense of context and how vocabulary is used within a text.
Lucy really the expert in this area, so she is the Cssc expert for English and whatever. You guys really got to listen to this carefully. Every point that she makes is so crucial.
Thanks, Aggie. Identifying and analysing language, that's a huge part. So being able to identify techniques, so similes, personification, alliteration, things like that. Or it could be, identify some speech or identify an exclamation. It could be anything about language within that passage. They have to find it and then analyse it. And by analysing it, they're basically explaining what does it mean or what's the effect of that on the reader. Okay. Another common one that comes up is SPAG correction, otherwise known as spelling, punctuation, and grammar correction. So your child may be asked, they may be given, a part of that text. They have to rewrite that part of text in maybe standard English. So they have to, if there's any kind of slang words, they may have to rewrite it into standard English or correct English. They may be asked how else they could punctuate a sentence. So rather than using, I don't know, a hyphen, or rather than using ellipsis or a dash, how else could you punctuate it? So they basically need a sound knowledge of all the technical stuff within English. So spellings and spelling rules, so homophones, homonyms, punctuation, use of punctuation, what it is and what its job is as well. So name of it and actually why writers use it. And then grammar as well. So different parts of a sentence, things like clauses, tenses, super, super important. Next up, retrieval of facts. So it's kind of the most basic part of comprehension, but it does come up in the Cssc exam a lot. It's also part of the Key Stage 2 curriculum. Being able to just retrieve a fact from a passage and then just record it down. And finally, context. So, using their general understanding of maybe when the passage was set, who's written that passage, If there's any kind of old English or slang words, they have to think outside the box with that, and then try and maybe compare things to their own lives. There's a part of the Key Stage 2 curriculum that's compare, contrast, and comment. You have to compare things, say what's similar about them, contrast them, say what's different about that passage and where that's set compared to my life and where I live. And a child has to do that. And then comment on it, maybe come up with their own opinion on why those things are different. Again, Cssc, they're quite hot on that. They will include something where your child has to think outside the box as well. So a general understanding of, you know, even just history and society, things like that, basic. Continuous writing, so a quarter of this exam, a quarter of it in marks is for the writing. I would say arguably the part that really sets the best from the rest, if that's fair to say, those that have an overall skill within English, this is the part where they can really show it off. So not only have they put all of their knowledge into answering questions about a passage, they can then even use some of those techniques and use those, you know, punctuation devices and vocabulary to their own merit within the writing. It's basically about manipulating language to suit the context. Your child will get two different questions. One of them will be descriptive or figurative, something that really tunes in with their imagination. And the other one will be technical or informative, you know, maybe having to instruct something, having to review something. It's something that they're having to use a different part of their brain almost to write it down. And it's usually based on things that they will have experienced. So, you know, instruct a friend on how to make a jam sandwich, something like that. Okay, so they should be able to know how to do that, hopefully. Okay, verbal reasoning or applied reasoning, it's worth 5 marks out of the 60. So, you know, it's a small part, it's a 1/12 of the exam. Word puzzles, okay, spellings and vocabulary. It's being kind of logical and clever with words, applying different rules to them, swapping letters around. So it's a 1/12 of the exam, you know, not a huge deal if your child isn't extremely strong in applied reasoning or verbal reasoning. But again, arguably could be their kind of chance to outweigh others. So still important. So top tips for supporting at home for English is to explore both classic and contemporary literature. I'd probably sway more towards classic for Csse.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because most of the comprehensions and vocabulary, context, it's mainly classic. But don't forget about contemporary, because you can never say never. And it's also better for your child if they're kind of exploring both types. Review spelling, punctuation and grammar concepts. So things like homophones, homonym, again, punctuation and why it's used, so parenthesis, and grammar, so clauses, conjunctions, vocabulary, things like that. Practice both multiple choice and standard format questions. So don't just limit it to one style. Otherwise your child will get, you know, prepared and feel comfortable with that one style. By the time they come and sit the exam, they'll go, "Ooh, it's too much. I can't do it. I've not done that before." So you want them to feel as comfortable as possible by the time they come to sit that exam. Revise word classes and their role within language. So I'm talking about things like adjectives, adverbs, verbs, nouns, pronouns. Again, part of grammar and speech, but extremely useful, okay? Build on vocabulary through the use of synonyms and antonyms. So there's lots of different techniques that different people use. Sheena actually has a really, really good one for vocabulary. So Sheena, I don't know whether you want to elaborate on your method for your famous 5.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I called it 5 a day just because back then we were being pushed to eat 5 veg a day, so it was easy with the young kids to make them realise what it was. So I called it 5 a day. But in actual fact, even 1 a day would work. And what we did was, so what I would do, I would write down 5 words on a piece of paper, and I'd take those words everywhere with me, on a dog walk, in the car, everywhere. I even included my husband, who was not interested in English, and the kids would roll their eyes, but it was great fun. We'd make sure we brought those 5 words, or even 1 or 2 or 3, into our daily conversation over and over again. And I was walking with Jude, my son, who's now in year 9, the other day, in the exact spot where I said, do you remember me trying to teach you what moral compass meant? And he said, Mother, I will never forget it. Because I would literally bring, I mean, moral compass is 2 words, but I would literally bring the meaning over and over. And the words that I really worked on with him were veto and sanction, because that was the threat he always had against his Xbox. So if he didn't do this, I would veto his Xbox. And because sanction is a contronym, so sanction can mean allow, and it can also mean to ban. It was a really good way of teaching him that contronyms exist. And thanks to Nkem for teaching me the term contronym, because I didn't know at the time. But teaching them that words can even have, one word can even have complete opposite meanings. So I would say that is the most valuable thing we can do, especially for kids with English as a second language, or English that is not spoken as a first language at home. So if a parent can say, okay, today we're going, and it can be really simple words. Don't go for the fancy words. Go for words like, and I'll never forget this, Jude came out of his exam and I said, were there any words you didn't know? And he said, yeah, he said, I didn't know barely. I was like, what? I had not drummed the simple meaning of barely in context into his head. I'd probably gone with words that I felt were more exotic, when really he didn't really understand the meaning of barely and merely. So that was a lesson to me. So
He barely understood the meaning of the word
yeah,
barely.
exactly. So a couple of words, I mean, as simple as gloomy, grim. I remember teaching Jude, this is when he was in probably year 4, and I remember saying, what does sorrow mean? And he didn't know. He did not know it was a synonym of sad. So it's simple words like that we take for granted that a child in year 4 won't. And then in year 5, you can go for more sophisticated words, because the other thing I noticed was there is a massive jump between their ability from year 4 to year 5. So don't fret if they're struggling with vocab, keep it going and it will come.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you,
Cool.
Sheena. Okay, and finally, ensure that timing is monitored, but only perfected if the overall subject knowledge is secure. So please do not try to teach your child things and expect them to do it within a time frame as well, or within, you know, time constraints, because it will just, blow their mind. They won't be, they'll lack confidence with it. They'll start, you know, it will demotivate them basically. So once subject knowledge is secure, so hopefully for say year 5s, maybe Easter, perhaps moving into the summer term, because especially this cohort, because of COVID. So timing, kind of perfect it. As soon as you think your child is, okay, they're solid with their knowledge, then look at timing. And it won't kind of have the opposite effect then. Okay, mathematics. Again, total marks 60. Now in maths, there have always been between 18 and 22 questions, and many of those questions are multi-step formats, so where you have part A, part B, part C, part D, but it's all based on that one question, which will be from a certain topic within the syllabus. The topics are based on level 5 Key Stage 2 curriculum. This is really important. If your child's in year 5, they will not be working at level 5 Key Stage 2 curriculum until they sit their SATs in year 6. So your child, it's very likely that they will not be familiar with some of the concepts within this test. So the subject knowledge needs to be a year ahead of what is expected. This isn't to put pressure on you as parents. This is to, you know, advise you and help you. The maths is tricky for a year 5 to sit. You know, they just go into year 6 really. So you need to be a year ahead. They need to feel confident and secure within that subject. And again, maths is usually easier to support at home. People feel more confident in supporting their child with maths rather than English. So yeah, just set aside some extra time just to do things that kind of go beyond what they're doing at school, whether that's in school or online. So take those topics and just push them out a little and keep doing that so that they're ready for year 6 when they sit their exam. Skills within maths for Cssc, this is just for Cssc, kind of analyse previous papers and, you know, areas, subject areas. These are the most common ones that come up. So you have BODMAS, otherwise known as BIDMAS. Unit conversions is a huge one. So converting from, you know, centimetres to metres, metres to kilometres, or they actually they quite like using imperial measures, which I think is a bit unfair. But they will give you that conversion, and then your child has to apply it. Algebra, specifically nth term, so patterns and sequences, square, cube and prime numbers, coordinates and transformations, percentages, profit and loss specifically, nets of shapes always seems to come up, speed, distance and time, so knowing how to manipulate those 3, the conversions between them, and money problems. Specifically, I would say currency. They love a currency question. And again, that's conversions. That's using like a unit of conversion. So yeah, those are the most common ones. So I would really get to grips with those throughout year 5, and, you know, just make sure that your child is comfortable with them. They don't have to be overconfident as long as they're comfortable with them. Okay. So supporting at home, things that you can do, consolidate the subject knowledge throughout year 5 in line with the Key Stage 2 curriculum. Now that's the curriculum right up to year 6. Okay, so consolidate that knowledge. You guys can access the national curriculum for Key Stage 2 for free. It's downloadable. I might put in a link for you in the comments. It's downloadable. You can literally access it and you can tell exactly what your child's being taught within that key stage. Okay, and it will have within there what they should be able to do. So I'll put that in as a link. Practice both multiple choice and standard format questions. So questions where they have to really show they're working, practice those. Questions where they just have to tick a box, practice those, both types, really important. Again, ensure that timing is monitored throughout, but only perfected if the overall subject knowledge is secure. Okay, they have to feel kind of confident to a certain extent before they can even think about doing something within a time frame, a time constraint. Okay, recommendations. So there's a wealth of stuff out there in how you can prepare or support your child. We have the obvious websites and subscriptions, okay, especially say for revision. So I'd recommend BBC Bite Size. That's a really, really good one. And it's kind of, you can even go up to Key Stage 3 on that one, which can be the level that you're working at in some of these exams, and sometimes for the Cssc as well. And it's all kind of sectioned off into year group, into topics. So really, really super user-friendly, good one to use. One-to-one or group tuition. Obviously, most people feel that a tutor is necessary. It's not necessary. You can, do this yourself as parents. But tuition can be an option for some parents. One-to-one is a bit more intense, where that tutor really focuses on the areas of that need improving for your child, and then continually focus on them and review it and give you feedback. And then you have group tuition where, it's less intense. They're still covering the same subjects, but the feedback and the service that you get from that particular tutor won't be as much as if, you were going the one-to-one route. Study books. I mean, it's like a world of books. I've got some here with me that I really love for the Cssc exam specifically. I think it's important to have a variety of resources, to not stick with just one route, not just go to Schofield and Sims or just go to CGP and think that one is better than the other. It's not about that. It's about finding, resources that keep things nice and engaging and fun, and they're different, they're varied, and that's what your child will appreciate doing. They don't want to work through the same thing every single day. Books I would recommend for general English support. I feel like this one is my Bible, Illustrated First Aid in English. It's a really, really good investment.
Definitely.
Go right up to even, GCSE. There's some things in here that even at GCSE English you won't learn. But it's, I call that the Bible. It's super, super effective in exploring English. There's everything in there: grammar, spelling rules, just everything. So that's definitely one I'd say is necessary.
I think all three of us have got some books that we all want to recommend. So we'll just quickly go through every single one that we think we have seen, we have tried and tested with our own kids, and what we know works for a lot of parents and kids.
Secondly, which one shall I go for? Galore Park, I love. I love these workbooks. They're study and revision guides. Now, you can get these for English, you can get these for maths and non-verbal. I've got all of them and have used them within lessons and with students on multiple occasions. This one in particular, I think for Cssc, if you just want something that your child can work through each exercise, a few times a week or something, what I love about it is it explains the method. They're actually given an explanation. So this is great for year 5, because some of these concepts, they don't really do verbal reasoning at school. So some of these will be brand new to them. And then you have the training, so they get to practice, the trying out, again, practice and tests. So that's within time conditions. Answers are all included. So, either parents or the kids themselves can self-mark afterwards. And it just keeps it nice and concise. I think that's a good one to go for. Next up, if you want your child to be exposed to suitable comprehension that really focuses on vocabulary as well as verbal skills, it's got to be Sheena's one. It's a workbook, which I love, and this is going on from the Cadwallader Quest series, which are, series of novels, but I love the fact that this is based on that, but then the child can still explore and practice using different skills that they will need for the exam. So it's kind of set up into different exercises. You'll get a better view of this from Sheena, I guess. But comprehension, and then based on that comprehension, multiple choice questions. So remember what I said about not limiting things to just standard format or multiple choice. Do both. They're fine. It's fine to do both. Word definitions, just invaluable. Moves on to then verbal reasoning, compound words, linked words, odd word out. So it's all kind of kept nice and concise within that. So I think that one's it's a standalone verbal skills workbook, so you can literally just, without having read the novels, you can still buy that book. One more, I would say. Let's go for one more. First Past the Post, I love their series. For maths, the topics for maths are very number focused and reasoning focused. So I love AE Tuition for their maths, because it's actually numerical reasoning technique. Now there are 7 books within this series, and you'll see it says for 11 plus, but it's also year 5 to 7. So it's an investment. It will bring your child right up to, you know, if you were doing private school exams as well. And book 7, if you want to do things quickly and you feel like you're, you know, running out of time, book 7's good because it includes a revision of all topics from books 1 to 6, though not in as much detail, so be careful with that. And it, you know, finishes off basically all of those topics within each section. So you will have, I'll just give you an example. There's a revision section. So this is to do with basic number. And within that, you know, your child can work through. And once they've done an exercise, you'll be able to tell from them just doing a few pages of that, oh, okay, that area needs some work. Okay, so this is great for like year 5 summer. Maybe once you start doing practice tests. And I think I'm going to leave it there for now, although I am going to be updating in the comments some different series that I love.
I have a couple of books I'm going to show as well, Lucy. Yeah. This is another good book that I find to be really good. That is the Cssc Essex test, How to Become series. So they've got the maths, the English book, the maths book, and they've also got some practice papers as well. Okay, so that's another one. That's How to Become. You can get that on Amazon as well. And one thing I found that my kids liked were the vocabulary cartoons, things that get, you know, especially when they go on holiday. They like this sort of books, yeah. And again, you've got another one here, Mastering Vocabulary. That's another good one. Exploring vocabulary. I always emphasize on vocabulary for my kids since the time they started stringing sentences, beginning to put words together. I always got the dictionary out and said, let's look at new words. Yeah. Now, one more very interesting thing that I have in my stash of books that I've got here is a study planner for 11 plus. One of our members, TT Winderpo, she's actually a member in our group as well. And she has come up with this fantastic planner that from year 4, in fact, what you should do within certain timelines. Also tells you all about the Cssc exams and different things, what you need to do in summer term, everything that we talked about today. And you know, you can actually have a timeline when you need to look at ensuring you have covered certain things in for the exam. There's also, let me look at this. You know, when you need to do school visits, what are the things to look out for? All that sort of stuff is all in this planner for you. So it's a really good one. I really, really recommend that. Okay, yeah. What I'll do is, if TT, if you're watching, can you please add the link for anyone who wants to get this book for you from yourself? So just add the link in there, because I really believe it's really, really good. Okay. There's been a recent revision on this as well. I've looked at the previous version, and this one, I think, you know, she's really done a good job in revising it as well to help make things easier for you. All right. I think Sheena's got a few other books to show us as well. Sheena?
Hi. Well, I wanted to mention, I don't just want to talk about my books. We sat the test quite a few years ago, so I'm only talking from experience. Josie's now doing her A-levels and Jude's in year 9. We loved CGP, and I think a lot of parents I see asking when to start in year 3. And in year 3, you know, I would try not to mention the 11 plus. I would focus just on getting the most sound times tables, reading, the 4 operations in maths. And then in year 4, I would touch on what Lucy said about when she was talking about the English part of the Csse exam. I think being able to group words into type, part of speech, is the most important thing when it comes to the verbal reasoning and understanding aspect side of any English paper, because each word can be deemed to be an adjective or a verb. You know, they can all have several meanings. So I think that's really important. And we found CGP to be really good for that. And one thing I will say about CGP is there's a huge jump between their 8 and 9, not 8 and 9 and 9 and 10. They're quite similar. But there's a huge jump between 9 and 10 and 10 and 11. 10 and 11 is like, there's a stratospheric jump I found. And that's just worth noting. We use Bond. We liked Bond, not quite as much. At the time, we did use AE. Now, this is going back a long time. I didn't, and it sounds really pathetic now, but I didn't like the shiny paper that they used to print those books on. I don't think they use that shiny paper now. And also what we found for my kids, but I think this is probably more necessary for Csse and wasn't quite as necessary for the maths in my kids' exams, we found AE too tricky. Because they are trying to span that void with the age, so they're trying to appeal to a wider audience with their books. So like the book you just showed, Lucy, is actually 5 to 7. So, you know, it's from year 5 to 7. And if your kid is really strong in maths, then it won't daunt them. If they're not as strong in maths, just beware, because AE books can daunt them. That was my personal opinion. However, we did use their, and I don't know if they still do these books, but they were fabulous. It was a book of crosswords. It's in my cupboard. I should have dug it out. I'm sorry. I can post some pictures in the thread later. But it was a book, and on one page was a crossword, and then on the other page, it would be a sentence, and you had to fit in the word that you'd use in the crossword. And they were absolutely brilliant. So I can really vouch for that with AE, and I'm sure their maths is also brilliant, but it's not for the faint-hearted. But I don't think Csse maths is for the faint-hearted. First past the post we loved, because the numerical reasoning, which I think is kind of what your maths is here for Csse, was the same for Reading and Kendrick School. And what I hammered home to the kids was, you get the first step wrong, kids, it's all wrong. You've got to get each step right to get the right answer. So we love first past the post. I didn't use first aid for English because I didn't know it existed then. But I use it now. It's brilliant. I didn't know Robert Lomax existed then. His 11 plus lifeline for Csse is brilliant because his comprehension work is fabulous. I do comprehension, as you know, and I've also got a creative writing and comprehension book, which you know of, which would be perfect for Csse. So this workbook, so my workbooks with the green triangle in the top follow the novels. So I have the novels, which I've written, okay? The novels are written just for the 11 plus exam. My son wouldn't read, still doesn't read. He wouldn't read classics. So I wrote contemporary novels and put in the classic vocabulary. So they have a definition, a personalized in context, child-friendly definition on every page, and that follows the story. The workbooks, the green triangle, they have to be worked in tandem with the novels. There is also a notebook, orange. All this is a fancy place for your child to record their word choices, synonyms and antonyms, parts of speech, and their own memorable sentence. Like you said, the new workbook stands alone, Lucy. I'm just trying to think what else we used. I liked Christine Draper's little synonyms and antonyms books because they were portable and easy. We did use some apps, which back then were antiquated. Now there are brilliant apps, but I don't use them because I'm not up to date with them. What else did we use? We used I think we used Leap Papers, and we found those to be good as well. But I know Cssc do their own past papers. And that's about it. We didn't use a lot of Schofield and Sims, but their tutors did. And at the time, I can't remember, but I think you had to pay for the answers.
Yeah.
And I don't do paying for answers. If you buy a book, to me, you get the answers. But that's just my personal viewpoint as well. And I think that's it. I'm trying to think, was there anything else? Now,
Yeah,
I would use, and this is in complete head-to-head with my stuff, Linky Thinks. All their stuff is brilliant. I like Robert Lomax's stuff as well. I think Linky Thinks are fabulous for year 3 and 4. Ali now has an elementary and an advanced, and I think they're brilliant for boys because boys need a leg up. A lot of them do when it comes to creative writing. So I don't ever like to just shout about my own stuff. I like to shout about stuff that I really think adds value. And also, Lucy, I cannot stress more the point you made. You cannot just use one provider. This is not cheap. You've got to make the investment. You've got to. We used lots because if you're just using one provider, it's just like listening to one viewpoint. You know, and unfortunately, the way I looked at it was, if they get into grammar school, I don't have to pay for private school. And that just eased the pain, you know, and these books are a lot cheaper than private school. And also what we did, and I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but I'm going to do it because I care for parents. We didn't write into the books. We wrote on an A4 sheet of paper and we did the books over and over. But we spread them out over time. So we did like CGP 10 to 11 1 week or 1 month, then did Bond, and then we revisited it. And then the mistakes they made in that book were the things that I then knew they had to learn. So feel free. Don't make photocopies of my books. That's not allowed. But you are allowed, please, don't write in them. Use them over and over again and then flog them. That's what I did. But no PDFs. That's cheating.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No.
We don't get paid for PDFs.
I'm showing it for iPad.
Sharon's book.
A fantastic book.
It's brilliant.
One. She's got three subjects in one. She's got the mathematical reasoning and applied reasoning and verbal reasoning, as well as language inference and that. So that's another group that's a
the language inference is fabulous in Sharon's book. It really is. Yeah. Also, there's another book actually that I am going to say I like.
Oh yes, Danny
O'Kaye's book. Nice book. I don't want to get their company wrong. Bright Light. Danny, it's a nice book and it's nice and easy on the eye.
That's right. Now, don't forget that within the group itself are wonderful admins and some selected advertisers who are really good with whatever they do, maths, English, whatever. A lot of them are actually putting in resources on a daily basis or weekly basis, or whatever time frame they can. We've got loads of word of the day, idiom of the day, all in the respective albums in the group. So Lucy, are we going to show them how to navigate through that? Are we able to?
Also, Aggie, I just want to mention Richard Gray. He doesn't write resources, but Richard's website, Crystal Tuition, has a plethora of free PDFs that he's giving out to people that you can download that really help. And his creative writing crosses over with that of Cssc, although I know you don't have to write as much for Cssc, but it's about writing a lot about a little.
Yes. Okay, guys. So once you go into the Facebook group, you click on more. It comes up with media. And within that, if you go onto albums, it's all there in front of you. 11 plus maths, GCSE French, GCSE Spanish. There's so much.
You could probably actually teach the 11 plus syllabus from the free resources in Agnes's group.
Yeah, there's so much. So much.
Apart from my novels, of course.
Yeah, apart from yours.
Which are not in there. But no, there is so much there that sadly people do miss. So this is fabulous that you're sharing this.
I also wanted to show you a few other things. So these are just books that Aggie found helpful as like a parent of going through. So there's some Bond ones here, the Parent's Guide.
Yes.
Maths handbook. These are all guides. This is information to, you know, get like information for you as parents to understand it and to then be able to pass on to your child. So verbal reasoning handbook. There's TT's study planner. This one is super. I feel like the Cssc is kind of antiquated in a way. The comprehensions that they use and the context, it always kind of, you know, just tends to be quite classic. It just feels like kind of old school, as if the same kind of exam would have been sat in the 60s or 70s. So the 11 plus book, which is genuine exam questions from yesteryear,
we love that book,
is incredible. It's so good. I've got it here with me too, and it's split up into kind of short examinations, but you know, it's genuine questions that have been set before. So I feel like that's a really good one for Cssc. There's Ali's word wheels from Linky Thinks. They're so cool. And also, how do I feel, Will?
Sue has also got her own blog, The Tutoress. Loads, so a wealth of information there as well. And remember, Louise Pierce, Teach It Right has got loads of stuff. You know, they talk about, they do, I think almost every other day they do lives in the group, in their own group. You know, just look out for all these groups and just join them, because they give you, you know, free lessons. There's so much that you
Lucy, haven't you got some resources?
I have the book,
I hope they're coming up.
Yeah, they are. These are the final ones. I saved the best till last. No, I'm joking. So basically, how do I feel, Will? This is Ali's Linky Thinks, just to kind of finish off with. I think this is amazing because it's helping not only with your child and their mental health, especially during these times, and being able to kind of articulate how they feel, but it's also great if you have a comprehension there and you're trying to figure out, you're trying to make inferences based on that text and how characters are feeling from their behavior. I think that's, you know, it's crucial. It's crucial skill. Finally, I do have my Guess the Idiom cards here. So these are a set of flashcards. Now, the Cssc, like I said, they can be quite antiquated. It's all classic fiction. So knowledge of things like idioms are super important. And it's a drawing-based guessing game, okay? So it's just making it fun. It's making things fun. So we have things like, we have a card, couch potato, and your child will get a definition of it. AKA Sheena, an inactive person who watches a lot of television, presumably on the sofa. We then get given a sentence for context. His brother is a couch potato. I've never met anyone so lazy. The idea is your child picks a card up. They have to draw that idiom. They have to draw it, okay? They, you know, maybe would draw a sofa with a big potato on it. They then have to show that drawing to all the other players, and the players have to guess the idiom. Okay, that's the whole idea of the game. But it's a real kind of family fun game. So many people have said, you know, we played this as like our family game on Saturday night, and it was so amusing, and we ended up in fits of laughter. That's what you want. And what you could, you know, you can explore the English language as well, and you can learn things as you're doing it. That's what you want. Okay, so that's.
Where can we find those, Lucy?
Huh?
Where can we find your cards? Where can we
find these cards? So if you go onto my website, there is a specific tab for
links later. if you can add the link for us, all of these
Yeah.
items. I think all the items we've shown today, we'll try and add the links to the
Yes.
comments today.
Yeah, so I will add the link. That's absolutely fine. Finally, what I wanted to just go over, this is free to download from my website. This is a suggested reading list for 11+, and this is purposefully a mixture of classic and contemporary literature to complement your child's studies. And it's phased. So phase 1, this is when your child is first exploring, so maybe year 4. Phase 2, bookworm. This is when they've really kind of found their flow with reading. And then phase 3, so nearer to the exam or even kind of mid-year 5, I'd say, onwards, expert. So Sheena's in there, Cadwallader Quest, definitely. Although that's something that you could start earlier if you wanted to. But the idea is they're building up and up and up. They're not just kind of picking just books that they like all the time. You know, they have to choose one from each phase. So that's available to download for free on my website, suggested reading list. I'll put all these links in. And finally, that is it. I think we've covered everything. I feel as if we have.
I think we've done quite a lot today.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. So thank you guys so much for watching, for tuning in. After all, we have, I guess, provided this for you. We wanted to answer all of these questions that have been floating around surrounding the Cssc exam. And I really hope that we've covered everything in as much detail as possible. We will be hosting further live sessions specifically for the Cssc exam, okay? So if you see my face, probably, along with Aggie, Sheena, then, you know, we're going to be kind of continuing the series, if you like, for the Cssc exam, because there's lots and lots and lots of information that we could have put in, but we've had to kind of streamline it so that you're not all kind of falling asleep by the end of it. So I hope we've covered everything. Guys, anything that you'd like to say?
Yeah, there's something I would like to say, that if you had just joined us halfway, or you had to leave to go and get dinner ready or whatever, don't worry about it, because this video is going to be saved and it will be in the group. And I know we've covered quite a lot and it's taken almost 1.5 hours, but you can always watch it again and again in little chunks. Sit down with your child if you need to for certain sections. You know, mom and dad can sit down and understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. That's really, really important. You understand what you're getting your child into first. There's all these things that we've talked to you about. There's no omitting one bit that you like or dislike or whatever it is. You know, you just need to make sure you commit yourself to this if you really want to go through the journey. So year 4 to year 5, it's a long time. If this lockdown is going to give us a little bit of slack, you know, we just have a little bit of time to really have the normal school that they're used to. Hopefully going to be a lot more helpful, but we've got to adjust with the kind of new norm that we have. But make sure you take everything that we've mentioned. We've really gone through, Lucy and myself have gone through quite an extensive amount of work to get this presentation done today, because we realize how important this year in particular it is, because you can't just call up the Cssc office and ask, can I know about this? Can I know about that? Because you're not going to get an answer. There's hardly anyone, because they are situated in a school. The office is shut. You can't get answers easily. So we've tried to get all the information between us. As a parent who's had 2 kids now in grammar school, I've got 2 girls in CCHSG, and Lucy obviously has got so many kids through the grammar school exams for CSSE. So we've put our heads together and got all this information for you, so you do not have to go and search for the details you need. So make full use of this video, watch it time and again, share it with people you think need to know about it. If they are not in the group, invite them to join, because they've got to be in the group in order to be able to access the material. So look out for all the previous videos we have put into the group. We will keep sharing them every now and then, but also remember the resources we've got in the albums are crucial. They are there for you to use at your own leisure. We've got David Hatton is another fantastic admin who's been putting all this punctuation, you know, Sarah Louise Johan has been talking capitalization rules and stuff like that. So look out for all those resources. They are there for you to use with your child. So, all the best to all of you. And remember, my admins and I are always here to answer questions. Just ping us a message or under this comments in the comment section for this video itself. We'll try and answer questions as best as we can. I think we've covered most of it, but if there's anything we've missed out, send it to us ahead of our next live even. We can try and cover that for you.
Perfect. And thank you, Aggie, for being head of this amazing operation as well, and allowing us to bring all this information to parents. I think it's just so crucial for a process like this, something that's usually not really spoken about, is it? So yeah, it's fantastic that we're able to do this. So thank you as well.
Welcome to some of the many new members have just joined us from the start of the session. So, like I said, go ahead and just go over the video again.
Perfect. Yep. Okay, that's it, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Lucy.
Bye.
It was absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Agnes.
Thanks, Sheena.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.